Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 4:01 p.m. This is the regular work session of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. We rescheduled this meeting due to another... Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4:01 p.m. This is the regular work session of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Okay. All right. Now we won't have any feedback from our computer. Robert, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right. Perfect. Well, good evening to you. It's afternoon to us. We rescheduled today's meeting because we had a county commissioners meeting yesterday regarding the American Rescue Plan funding. And that conflicted directly with our meeting time. So we scheduled this one for today, and we also moved our regular meeting up a week, so we would have a physical meeting place and working computers. Our first order of business is public comments on the agenda. Does anybody have anything to comment on that is included or not included? This is not comment on, general items, just what is included on the agenda or not. No, that'll be at the end. So that's on each item.
Okay. I thought you said included and not included.
Well, on whether or not something should or should not be.
Okay.
And then that'll actually start to change as I forget the act number, but legislation was enacted that will require us to vote on whether or not we add things to the agenda that we vote on going forward.
Act 65.
Right.
And it's not complicated, but there's certain things that need to be done. I'm preparing a memo now for one of my boroughs, and I'll try to pass it around to everybody.
That would be great. Yeah, there's actually a training online about that soon, too.
There was a webinar by the Right to Know Commission this morning, and it covered the Sunshine Act. It's really worthwhile. I'll share that with you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So our first order then, after the public comment, is authorizing the public hearing regarding the change in the zoning district for Francis M. Roth. Ron, do you want to talk about that briefly? I know everybody had some questions in regard to that.
We received an application for a public hearing with respect to the property located at 239 Twin Falls Road, which property was or is in the economic development zone. The statement on the application is that it was in the residential zone, and the reason that the change is being requested is that the person's taxes have increased dramatically because the land is now considered commercial, and that the property, was never commercial. So they've requested a hearing to determine if the property should be placed back into the residential zoning district. While there is no time frame with respect to a hearing, there has to be a public hearing if the board wishes to act on this. Now, this is a legislative change. It's not a landowner charter amendment saying that your ordinance is bad and it doesn't cover something, or it's invalid, or there's some substantial invalidity nor is it a township curative amendment. So, being a legislative matter, you can just say, no, we're not gonna hear this, thank you very much, and be done with it. You don't have to hold a public hearing if you don't want to, although I think you probably should, just so that the applicant has an opportunity to come here and state his or her position as to why they would want the zoning change. And then after the hearing, of course, you can then make the appropriate decision. If in fact you're going to proceed with the hearing, then the zoning request has to go to both the Township Planning Commission and the Monroe County Planning Commission for a review.
Ron, can you hear me?
I
Ron?
hear you.
Is there any way we could take this up at the August 19th meeting we've already scheduled, which would be about matters that pertain to the economic development zone?
I would say yes, only because it looks like if there was to be a hearing within 60 days, it looks like we're out of that line, out of that window anyway. I mean, I'm looking at this application, which has been signed on April 12th. I'm assuming that's when it was filed, although maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't filed on April 12th. So, but if it's been filed on April 12th, we're beyond the 60 days anyway. So taking it up in August is going to be no harm, no foul. If it was recently filed, I probably would suggest that we have that hearing within the 60-day window, unless the applicant agrees to an extension.
Well, it just seems, since the planning commission will be there anyway, it seems a convenient time to hear this and to get some more information and probably in our own minds at least make a judgment on it.
Do we know, Robert, when it was actually filed with the township?
I have an answer to that. I at least know, I don't know when Ken received it, because I hadn't asked. That should probably be stamped on this, but I saw Allison Road, actually, she may have had her colleague or whoever she's assisting, Ms. Roth, sign it on April 12th, but it looks like it wasn't actually filed until at least June 8th, the date that I have.
June 8th. Is there some reason we don't have some process in place where when something comes in, it gets time-stamped and we know exactly when it's filed?
To make sure that we start stamping on the case.
Because, you know, the time starts to run then, but let's say it's June 8th. When is the date that you're talking about, Robert? August what?
I believe it's August 19th. We're planning a joint session and a public session on changes we're talking about making in the what is it, ED economic zone ordinance.
Right.
Let me
I
jump
think
in
we're
for a
gonna-
moment. Yeah.
we're gonna
the
address
planning
that today.
commission, actually suggested
Today.
that.
Yeah, the planning commission had different availability.
Robert, we're gonna discuss that a little bit further on the agenda. The actual date, but it's gonna be in around that area, you're right.
Well, whatever it is, it seems like this would be a convenient time to bring this up since it's part and parcel of the same thing.
And I guess my only question is, we're not gonna get involved in spot zoning, or we should stop right here.
Well, if it's going to be attached to part of what's already a residential zone, not really spot zoning, you're just making the residential zone a bit bigger. But if this is going to be just an island of residential
Well, the map
within
is
other properties.
Attached to,
Yeah, but I don't know what the green means.
oh, the green, that's I believe that's RC, that's residential conservation.
All right, so, I mean, if you're gonna make that part of residential conservation, you're just attaching that to that, and that would not be spot zoning, as opposed if that was commercial on one side and let's say resort on the other side. Then you would be making an island. So I don't think that would be the case here, but we don't know enough information. That, you know, we need to have them come to a hearing, present an application, I mean, even requesting the public hearing, really, they should be filing a petition to explain why they want the zone change. So if we're looking at August 24, I would think that we go back to the applicant and see if the applicant is willing to extend the time. If we're talking June 8th, then the 60 days, if the 60 days does apply, which I'm not sure of, but let's assume it does to be safe, that would take us to August 8th. Then for them to agree to another 12 days or 13 days extension, I don't think that would be an issue, but, you know, famous last words, I guess.
I think they would be amenable to that based on, you know, the time that they were here, which I think they were here probably in April or May, but.
And that also gives an opportunity for the Monroe County Planning Commission to make a review on the request. We're gonna wait till the 24th for the Township Planning Commission, okay, that's fine, but Monroe, in the meantime, can make a review on the request.
Well, that said, I'd like to move that we request the extension from the applicant and consider the necessary reviews by planning commissions by August 24th. I don't want to include too many things in the motion. I'll make a subsequent one also.
I'll second.
Okay. Any comment or discussion?
And would that be an earlier meeting or later meeting, Mr. Chair?
Well, I think
That's a Tuesday, I think.
right. Yeah, that's actually our regular meeting date anyway. The planning commission wants to. Well, yeah, they want to meet though earlier in the day before our meeting, the Township Planning Commission.
Okay.
So.
But your meeting would be 7, so they may want to meet 5 or 6 or something
right.
like that.
I think they were looking at 5.
Just want to mark my calendar, so.
Actually, they said 4, David.
As you know, there are times when I get the dates and times screwed up, so I want to make sure I'm okay.
No worries.
Okay.
All right. Well, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Jacob, the meeting on the 24th will be a public meeting as well, right?
Oh yeah, that's our regular meeting. Yeah. That day is all the public meetings. Yeah.
However, if we meet with them at 4 o'clock, I think the Chairman Amori said that he would prefer to meet maybe at 4 or 5 at the latest. So that puts us in a situation where maybe a couple hours before our regularly scheduled meeting. And that's, I guess, what we're really here to discuss, how best to do that, Ron.
All right. Well, 4 o'clock is fine then for the, you know, ED zone joint meeting, though it won't really be one that contains voting aside from their recommendation on this application. So I'll move that we schedule the public hearing on the change in zoning district for Francis M. Roth for August 24th at 7 p.m.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, well, our next order of business is discussing the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection response letter in regard to our ongoing SEO issue. So, Ron, if you want to take it away there.
You recall, back in the early part of the year, maybe the tail end of last year, I think it's for Franklin Hill Enterprises LLC, made an application for an on-lot sewage system, and there was some issue with respect to that system. The sewage enforcement officer at that time, by the name of Dave Manter, M-A-N-T-E-R, did not issue a permit or would not grant an application for a permit. I'm not sure exactly the language there. And consequently, the applicant came to the township, and the township reviewed the matter and determined that a permit should have been issued based upon vested rights and other information. Mr. Mancher was upset with that decision. He resigned his position as Township Sewage Enforcement Officer, then made a complaint to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection that manages and controls sanitary on-lot sewage systems, and we were contacted by an attorney by the name of Ann Conseret, Conserette, who's assistant counsel to PADEP from the Wilkes-Barre office, asking that we explain to her what the township did and why we did it. We did send a packet of information to her. In fact, also the applicant sent a packet of information to her. I'm holding it here in my hand. It's at least an inch thick. And she's now contacting us saying that she basically doesn't have enough information, that they did not find our responsive letter of April 30 to be sufficient, and that please provide the additional information by July 30, and she made a list of 1 through 7 items that she is looking for, and we ask that our new sewage enforcement officer be present, and he is present here at the hearing, and our responsive letter basically went through our position, and our responsive letter April 30, that Mr. Mancher's correspondence of October 4, 2021 not refer to a location change of a component of the on-lot system. He simply stated the permit was expired. As stated in the owner's complaint, and again, this is the complaint here, significant work was done and commenced on the system well before the expiration date of October 6, 2017. In fact, the township also asked the applicant to merge his 3 lots into 1 lot so as not to create any issue with the location of the on-lot system and its components, and the applicant did that. Both building and zoning permits were secured before October 6, 2017. Building permit in September 2015, zoning permit March 23, 2016. So those permits were both secured a year before the sanitary sewage permit allegedly expired. The township enacted a resolution after there was a hearing and or meeting on the matter, and the township resolution simply addressed the fact that the permit did not expire. Not a formal hearing on the issuance of a denial, revocation, or issuance of a permit, and that the property owner had made a request for that, and we simply took it upon ourselves to address that issue. One of the declared policies of the PA Sewage and Facilities Act is to ensure the rights of citizens on matters of Constitution are related and supported by the Constitution of the Commonwealth, and it was the township's position that the property owner has a due process right to a permit pursuant to the PA Constitution, Article 1, Section 11. The attorney is saying we did not provide her with the result of the township's investigation, not provide her with a copy of the original full septic system design plans and plot plans, copies of recent site investigations, percolation tests, and other tests were not provided, plot plan showing location of the area, location of the site was not provided, a building permit for the site, copy of the amendment to the permit, copy of the minutes of that meeting of October 4 for when the matter was reviewed. Again, all of that information has been submitted to her through the applicant and through the complaint that was filed. I'm not certain what more we can provide. However, I leave it to our sewage enforcement officer to jump in and see if there's anything else that we should provide that has not been provided.
Ron, can I just say very simply, what the attorney is really citing is the same 7 areas that were in included in her March 24th letter. We did respond, the applicant responded, and there's no indication that anything was taken into consideration on their part. I'm talking about DEP.
Correct.
So, you know, like, I'm floundering here, wondering what the heck they're looking for, and what we did provide them, where were we, remiss or lacking, and where did we, concur with their...
I would say to you that some of the things they requested, we did not provide because they had been provided through a application
Right.
by the
judge.
I mean, here's designs, here's et cetera. Now, I did refer to that complaint in our response.
You did, several
Yeah,
times.
I said that, in fact, I even attached it. I didn't attach all the attachments, but I attached the, 50 allegation complaint that dealt with this.
Well, you know what? Can I say something here? I think it's time for a higher authority in the state to review this, because either this attorney doesn't know what she's doing or this is harassment. I've never heard of anything like this. And spending the people's money endlessly on this thing is ridiculous.
Well, and that was your position, and Brian is basically with that same position also. I can simply respond to her and say that we believe we have fully responded to your letter. Here's a copy of the complaint, and this time we'll give you all the attachments. Thank you very much, and let it go at that.
Yeah, well, I would also send a copy of that to the head of the department.
Well, we can do that too, but I would send it to her first before we go over her head, and then if in fact she comes back and she's still upset that we haven't sent anything to her, well, then we will send it to Mr. Scott Navatnak from the PAD.
I don't really care if she's upset. This has been going on too long for nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
Scott, have you experienced anything remotely similar to this in your career? No, I figured. You know, this is almost petty at this point. I agree that Ron, if you contact them and, I mean, there's not much more, but beyond sending them.
I don't want to spend more township money, hours and hours, because it took hours and hours to respond to this. I'm just going to say, here's this.
Right.
Thank you very much. See you later.
There's nothing else.
All the system design information, that's when she's referencing that in her plan. I'm not sure if she means the new permit that we gave her or everything that was done prior to the permit I issued that Dave had worked on and design information that was there that he said is no longer any good, that's expired. That information in there, I'm not sure.
You're asking me, as a non-expert, whether that information is here. I don't know that.
Okay.
Without, I don't have any expertise as to what something like that design would look like. That's an engineer or an SEO's call.
Perhaps at least, though, DEP could tell us specifically what we didn't provide, instead of having a letter that is effectively the same as the first one. Yeah.
Here, the first document.
Well, it looks like they're looking for both. They're looking for a plot plan that shows, A, the locations of the proposed absorption site as originally designed and permitted, which would be what Dave Manter approved. And B, the location of the proposed site as currently planned for the construction of the system, which would be what you issued a permit for.
Right, and her position is, and I mean to interrupt you, John, but that the location of the system was changed, so how could we have issued a permit for that? And my position is that Manter didn't say that in his letter. He just said the permit was expired. He didn't say anything about a change of location. Had he said something to that effect, perhaps we would have looked at it differently, but he never told us that.
But I think it has changed, hasn't it?
Well, it has now.
I think that's what she's asking for.
I think there's that. Yes, so I know we sent in the design, I handed the design information to DEP. I don't know if the permit that I had issued, all that information I assume was also sent in.
I can tell you this, from some of my workings with DEP recently, I don't know if they're in the office now, but they haven't been in the office for the past year. And if you submit a piece of information to one person, it never gets to anyone else.
Yeah, no, that's been
I
right.
guess my other thought on this before we, begin to get to other things, is even if the location, changed from the original application, the permit granted met all the specifications that DEP requires anyway, right? You would not have issued a permit that,
Honestly, I think this is just, DEP has, everything's resolved, but they're picked off from the date has told them about the PATS Act, how the Township Act is passed, and that's what they're trying to make a point of.
So how do we peacefully, get through this?
Board, if I may, perhaps there's always the chance that she never received our email in the first place. If an attachment didn't make it through, maybe for some reason through her firewall, that could be the problem. Would it be worth our time to call her and say, we submitted all of these things, what are you missing? As a way to maybe try and produce an olive branch? And maybe resolve this peacefully before we drop everything on her desk again and say, here is everything, good day.
Yeah.
I really thought that what we should do is get back to this attorney and just say, basically, tell us where we missed. Where we missed it. Just give us something to go on.
Yeah.
We gave you a plethora of information, and now you're coming back with the same 7 areas.
Right.
And, just let us know. And Ron, I don't know how you feel about that. That's as simple as that.
I'll do whatever the board tells me to do. You want me to go there and, pop her in the nose, I'll do that too.
Oh,
Well,
don't.
no.
Let me know what you
Let
want
the
me
record
to do.
reflect that I said yes before that suggestion.
By the way, Scott, I have in this packet an elevated sand mound design back in September of 2005.
Okay.
So I don't know if that
That's,
makes a difference or not, but that's in this packet.
Yeah.
All right, so getting back, so again, in all seriousness, I'll do whatever the board, wants me to do. I don't know if she's received the packet. I can't believe that she would not have received this packet.
Right.
From, the Chief Executive Officer of FHE, LLC. This was dated April 28th, so I mean, we're now May, June.
Right.
Moving on 3 months, so, and again, I believe that Scott is right, that they are working remotely, and there's very few people in the offices, et cetera. Did she get it or not? I don't know, but I'll again, respond in any fashion that.
I think a phone call that you wanna do first, just to say, what did we miss, or a letter, whichever method you think is fine. I don't know that we need to have a formal vote on, which method you feel is best to represent us.
Well, what I'll do, which is the least invasive and less costly, is first give her a call.
Okay.
Then, once I hear what her position is, I will then be able to respond back to the township, and then the board can then tell me, okay, based upon what she told you, let's do this or that. So I'll do a call first. Okay?
Good.
Sounds great.
Good luck.
Well,
Good luck, because I'll bet you don't even get her on the phone.
We're gonna try.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for, being here to talk about this with us.
But don't leave town,
Should
Scott.
know about, with respect to this, that, we're missing, or the township did wrong, or something. I mean, it's, no one has the market corner that's sometimes doing everything right or making mistakes.
no, I think what I understood from other DEP people, personnel, was the fact that the proper local agency hearing procedure wasn't followed. That's, they're having a beef with that, but the judge never asked for one.
Right, you're correct. If it dealt with the issuance of a permit, the revocation of a permit, or a suspension of a permit, then that hearing process occurs. None of that applied here, but the argument made by manager was that the permit expired, not that it revoked, not that it wasn't applicable, not that it was suspended, it expired. That takes it out of the realm of that hearing procedure, in my opinion, anyway.
I agree.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Safe trip.
For looking so nice and tan and svelte and everything, we made the rest of us.
Still working on the farm.
There you go.
Next order of business, special event permit application for, the local VFW on Fawn Road, for fireworks with, July 17th and, July 31st being their firework dates. They are not asking for any directional signs, and, essentially the same application as any other year. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I don't.
I'll entertain a motion on this.
I'll make the motion.
Would
I'll
you like
second.
to include waiving the fee for the VSW?
We've done that in the past, haven't we, Jiggy?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Robert, we've waived in the past the fee, haven't we, Dean?
I believe so, and we should now, of course.
Okay. So, yeah, then waive the fee.
All right. Motion by Brian Barrett. All second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Our next item is a special event permit filed on behalf of Delaware Water Gap Fire Company for their September 11th workout at Minnesink Park. This event they did last year at the airport in the township, but they found that they actually had a lot of people that wanted to join them, so this time they'd like to use Minnesink Park. They were clear as far as conflicts with soccer, because soccer won't start until 12:30, and this 12 p.m. is a conservative estimate on when they would be done, from 8 a.m. to noon, and it's a fundraiser. Anybody have any questions on that one?
Just one question, the applicant named Michael Smith, or Water Gap Fire Department.
Mm-hmm.
Is he an officer?
He's I suppose he's their captain.
Is he?
Actually, yeah, he's the captain.
Okay.
Howard Ike is the chief, but he's the captain.
All right. And they have their certificates of insurance, and we're whole harmless.
Yep. I'll move that we grant the application and waive the fee for the fire department. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next one is also from Delaware Water Gap Fire Company, but that does not currently have the certificate of insurance for the wrestling company, so, I'd like to move that we table this application until we have, that, and we should feasibly by our next meeting. Anyone have any questions?
Do we have to make, is that a motion or no?
Yeah, I just motion to, table
I'd
until the next
second that
meeting.
motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next is Smithfield Gateway update. Doug, Jim, Jamie, whoever would like to speak.
Here comes the guys with the tan. You guys make Scott look like he's white as I am. Okay.
Good to see everybody.
Yes, been a bit.
So, you see, work continues. Yesterday, Doug arrived and digging was going underneath, killing us.
Started at 9:10 this morning.
Amazing. Way through there. So we're pressing hard to close construction loan for St. Luke's. We have the development agreement that we're going to discuss a little bit here. The letter of credit is being prepared. Tomorrow, the subdivision plans and land development plans. So that's an important part of it. So basically, all the moving pieces are coming into place. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about, there's always complications that come up. In a few minutes, basically, a situation has come up on with the Kirkwoods on the Loop Road. Doug will explain, we're working that through. We have, we're starting, from a marketing perspective, people are starting to notice the project for the first time and actually see that it's occurring. We're working on something exciting on what's known as the Chelsea property. We engaged a feasibility study with a sports arena people, and they completed the feasibility report. We'll make that public soon. And we're very excited about it. It's gaining some momentum. I think it'll be terrific for the community and the project because these type of facilities really draw a lot of families, not just from the local area, but also from beyond. That's pretty exciting. Of course, our project is in multi-phases. Most of our concentration is on what we call phase 1A, which is being spearheaded with St. Luke's. We have 9,000 square feet that is alongside of St. Luke's, where we're relocating Dunkin' Donuts and working with some other tenants. And we think maybe that'll start in the fall. And then we have several other pads that we're working on. So a lot happening on that. Phase 1B, which is the multifamily project, we've been working with developers to come in. We did get some very favorable studies. We have not yet, because it's not our business, and we're primarily retail people. So our goal was to align with a residential builder, and we've had some very good ones, including today. Some of them just don't get the Pocono Mountain region as opportunities, right? I mean, if you come from Arlington, Virginia, you look at the demographics down there, we think they all check out very good, but some of them just say the rental rates won't be here. We disagree. All the studies support that they will. So we're really looking to bring forth that co-developers sometime in the near future, because that is a very important part of the TIF plan. We know there's a TIF plan that primarily is involved with 3 phases. One is the St. Luke's phase. The second one is the apartments, and the third is the senior housing project. And all of those 3 projects need to be generating tax revenue in somewhere around 3 years from now, right? Or we're going to be getting some big tax bills, or I'm going to pass them on to Jamie back there. But we're very confident that we are with the momentum that we're experiencing.
Jim, can I just interrupt one second? Sure. St. Luke's is a hospital. They will be paying taxes,
oh, yeah.
Or is that
It's in their lease.
It's in their lease.
Yeah,
okay, good.
So when you're talking to people out there in the street, Brian, it's a constant issue that comes up in the room.
You talk to your tax bureau, and it's a constant issue that comes up. Really, that's where it all starts.
Well,
you know,
they're the ones that told us, and it's right in the lease. That's my only question.
One of the next goals that we do need to achieve is, we have, of course, the improvements to do our first phase, the road improvements. And PennDOT was gracious enough to, and the township, to let us build our first phase, because we only had so much dollars. But the rules of the game is that we can't build any other phases until we finish 209, and also complete more of the Loop Road. So we're talking with Chuck Leonard and Rosemary and Senator Scavello, and banging on those same doors to assist in getting additional financing. Won't be for all of it, but, we'll need to land some of it. We're very confident in our ability to do that, because everybody wants to see 209 complete in total that way. But there was, and the big news is we submitted, finally, after months, and lay any claim to it, it's all the gentleman sitting next to me, getting the PennDOT application filed for the final time. What a bear. I remember last time I was here, Mr. Riccoboni was standing over there, great guy, real gentleman, but it was a lot of very complicated negotiations with his properties, his neighbors, with ours, and I think it was real achievement on Doug's part to help get that application in. Langen did a great job. He submitted it, and the day after we made the final submission, we visited our friend Senator Scavello, and we said, Mario, would you please call PennDOT? Right, and within minutes, we made that call. Because PennDOT typically gets their 30 days, and we're at a point now, we want that permit. Right? You heard that thing Reagan said, take down the wall, right? Well, we're saying, give us our permit right now, right? And we're pressing hard for that, and the Senator's being very helpful. But I think PennDOT is too. But it's very complicated, a lot of right-of-ways, a lot of distinct, tedious things to get done. But that's our last permit that we need to complete this and get that permit and be able to close our loan. So we're happy. We're going to be submitting the developers agreement, right, Doug?
Draft of it was sent out just before.
Yeah. I'm going to just touch on a few things about it. It's most of these things are normally very boilerplate. I'm just going to point out a few of the different maybe nuances about this. Just wanted to point them out that most cases these projects have one contract. In this one, it specifies two contracts because there's one contract that's dealing with the infrastructure work, where Northeast is the contractor on both. And then the second contract is what we call Pad A, which is the St. Luke's pad. So it refers to both, contracts, and they are different in the standpoint that in the, and which is outlined in here also, that in the infrastructure permit, there is no letter of credit. The letter of credit is basically being supplied by a representation from the PMI that they're holding the money. So when we close our loan, hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks, Mr. Leonard will be sitting on, he has a lot of money right now from us. He's going to be sitting on a lot more money. And basically, it will be his representation that to PennDOT and to the township that the funds are in place. They're all in place to do a very, very detailed report that Doug completed some time ago, which we made available, that outlines that funds are available to complete the infrastructure project, pay for contingencies, to pay for escrow costs, that they're all intact. So that is
And as part of that, an attachment to the developer's agreement will be a document that's called a collateral assignment of agreements, so that all the various grants, sources of funds that we have from the state that are funneling through Chuck Leonard's office, there'll be a document that'll be provided to the township that, in the case of something going awry as far as the developer is concerned, all of those agreements would be assigned to the township so that they, just as you can call in a letter of credit, this document will allow you to have the ability to then apply to Chuck Leonard for the funds in order to complete the improvements.
Because that's where the funds would be, I guess, that's what you're saying. And that would go
It's
to our.
similar, yeah, and that'll be obviously provided to everybody to review, and that document will be going out.
The state.
So, just that it has to be reviewed by numerous banks and more numerous attorneys. You know how they can be. Been a while.
So it's all good. The second, contract is basically will be secured conventionally by a bank, Provident Bank out of North Jersey. And they will supply $3.6 million letter of credit, facility, which will be conventionally, there, as security for the improvements. Okay? So, in here is detailed, these two contracts. Both of them have the township engineer as the inspector. I think the bank will have their own inspector, but basically, the way this will go down is as Mr. Kressler and his team approves work, and contractors get paid. And I think that is already commenced, right, John?
Yes.
Yes, it's already commenced.
One of the reasons why we have two separate contracts is because, one of the buckets of money that we have, which will, basically covers close to 50% of the work for the pads, that's with the rack fee. We'll have a letter of credit from a bank for the entire amount, but then, we'll be able to submit for reimbursements, because you have to spend the money first, and then you get reimbursed from rack fees.
Like our cap.
So that, right.
And
So that's why it has to be, a full letter of credit, and then we get the reimbursement. But they needed to be very clear that there's a clear line of demarcation between what was covered under their work vis-a-vis all the other stuff. So that made a logical spot to break it up. It's just the pads, is everything inside of the roof right-of-ways, covered by contract too.
So, other thing, there's obviously timing is in here, and we have a 2-year period to complete not all the development, but just the infrastructure work, that we outlined. There's we actually have the building permit to pull, which we will be doing very soon. Doug and I are meeting, we met with the water authority, we met with the sewer authority, and we're finalizing development agreements with both of them. And of course, we're going to we get started with the pad work, but until there's specifically in here that we can't get a CO until all the development agreements are done. And of course, nobody's going to take the risk to build a building without having the development agreements completed. We are working on finalizing them. There's been a lot of other priorities to get to, but we are addressing them. I think we actually have a get-together with BCRA next week.
Yeah. Now, as a corollary to that, the second attachment to the developer's agreement is what's being called the closing escrow agreement. And that also had to be approved by all the banks, and even St. Luke's gets into the picture on that. Is that we've got all these various documents from the township, documents from the water, sewer, various banking, financing, documents. And all those documents will go into escrow with Mark's Title Company, which is Pocono Mountain Land Abstract Company. And then this closing escrow agreement will outline in detail before an item is released from that, what needs to be done in order to be able to get that release. And then it'll provide a format with how each of those documents gets recorded.
Thank you for bringing that up. So from the township's perspective, the land development plan, which we'll be signing, okay, the development agreement, all of those will be in escrow until the letter of credit is delivered. And so, and Mark is he'll be serving at the escrow agreement. So there's going to be a lot of events taking place here. Many different banks, we have a First Keystone is supplying the balance of the TIF financing. We put together a coalition from all of our existing lenders who are loaning additional money to complete the roads, and everybody's position is, we're in the game, but we want to know that everything happens at the same time. And that's what's going to happen, hopefully, first week of August. Okay. And the township will be part of that. In the agreement is, escrows, we've been paying money as it goes along. This agreement sets forth that there's a $14,000, premium that will be made, and we await any invoices from the township. But what it says is that when it gets down to 2,500, we'll replenish. Okay? So at this point, there's no formal agreement other than DEPG saying, send us the bills and we'll pay them, which we have. But we'll certainly do that. This formalizes that process. As I said, PMI is the escrow agent, which is there. We talked about that. Very important just to go over, and that is what the release of the letter of credit. And the way these work, and the banks are very particular about them, because when they give a letter of credit, like for $3.6 million, what they really do is they take their loan, the line item, and they freeze it. They say, okay, Jim, we'll give you the $3.6 million, but we're going to give it to you from these line items in your budget, right? Not in addition to the line items, right? So what that means is that, and we've done this countless times, that as bills get inspected, as work gets inspected, okay, and is approved, basically the letter of credit is released from that amount. So when Northeast sends in a bill for $500,000, that $3.6 million, once it's approved by John, that letter of credit will reduce by $500,000. That's very important to the bank, because they don't want to be in a position where they have, 3.6 outstanding at the end of the job, right? But in that is two other areas, and that is the escrow payment and the contingency. Because if there is, and thank God so far we haven't had any, but if there is something that goes wrong, we need to be able to draw down on our contingency budget, and we also need to be able to draw down on the inspection costs, right, which are significant. But John, you said you're not going to spend it all that we have, but we got a big wad of money for you. Hopefully you don't spend it all.
Actually, I think John's letters have already been recommending that the appropriate percentage of the cost for the inspections also be released, so that the various inspectors can get paid. So that piece is already in place. That's very good.
And then lastly, we inserted something here that said, we're hoping that very quickly, this is only, we're just doing the statement of faith, but rather than go through this every time, we're hoping that when we do that 9,000 square feet, which is the retail next to St. Luke's, we can just come in, use this as the agreement, increase the escrows, right, and just roll with it and keep going, rather than have to show a whole new developer to read. So these are some things that we just wanted to touch on. You would like to talk about some of the details of it, and of course Mark Wolf prepared this, but we are anxious within the next couple of weeks to be able to put this to bed, so that with the land development plans and the subdivision, the condo agreements are basically just about complete, and this is a condominium project like we've done in other places, where each individual lot will be a separate condo. There are easements that all tie the project together, and those will be completed soon. So, a big mammoth project, and we're just about through everything. The last thing I just want to touch on, and I'm going to turn.
Just follow up on the condo that you mentioned. Also, as agreed to previously, once we have final draft together for condominium document, which shows how the maintenance is going to, be taken care of in the community, that would be provided to you for your review, so that you can see that maintenance for the roads, the lights, landscaping, and things like that is being taken care of as part of the condominium.
Part
And charges that would be noted in the.
And when do you plan to afford the condo plan?
After the subdivision and after the, land development plan. That's what the attorneys are telling us. That would be the third.
Right, but is it gonna be a week after, a year after, when things get constructed? I mean, how are you gonna?
Very soon.
I think it'll be recorded, quote unquote, at the same time. This will be one of the documents that would go into the escrow.
Okay.
We need that to also close the financing for the vertical construction for St. Louis. We should have a finalized version of the condo plan and the final draft of the condominium declaration available in the next few days that we'll be able to see.
Okay.
Okay. So one thing that, we just touched on this very briefly, that in the last, 3 or 4 months, we did a 5 real estate taxes, probably close to $400,000 between the Chelsea property and this. Obviously, because the lender didn't want to see it, the township wants to see it, and it's just good business. We always knew that there was a rollback tax on the properties. The good news for us is that the St. Louis property development is not in a rollback zone. But what we didn't know, okay, and again, I've never been involved in a rollback situation, is that the way the rule works is, once you touch one, doesn't matter if you don't touch the others. Just get, so to speak, whacked with the whole thing. We met with the tax assessor, and the amount of liability on the rollback is unbelievably high. It's a lot. We're having some conversations with the school district, which obviously is a driving force behind them, but we're looking to make some arrangement on them because, while we counted on some, we didn't count that, this is a big property, and other than the frontage, I guess 70 of the acres is in the rollback zone. So we just mentioned it, that it something will probably come back to you on, but we're looking to sort of hopefully make an arrangement.
So we're dealing with the elephant in the room first, and
Right.
depending on how things go with that, then we'll talk to you.
Yes. So that was obviously these things above. There's just various things that you get hit with that pleasant surprises, so to speak. But we're still standing. We're like a prize fighter. They knock you down, we get back up and we keep swinging. So I'm gonna let Doug tell you about. This is the next one that sort of came at us on in the 10th round, but we're still standing. So go ahead, Doug.
In the process of preparing all the various legal descriptions, survey descriptions, meets and bounds, and title policies, came to light that when the real estate was purchased from Charlie Kirkwood, that real estate, all of the real estate, with the exception the Mosier Farm Drive cul-de-sac, transferred to DEPG entities. The original agreement of sale included the whole kit and caboodle. In the original agreement of sale, or in the year after the original agreement of sale, Jim went through a subdivision that kind of broke it up, primarily breaking it up so that some of it was being bought by one DEPG entity, that being DEPG Mosier, and then the other one DEPG of Shawnee 2. I'm not going to get into the reasons for that, but that's the way it worked out. About a year later, almost exactly a year later, after that subdivision was approved, the agreement of sale was modified to agree with the parcels that were broken up. Of course, when you do a legal description for the parcel, somebody forgot to include cul-de-sac. So the people that looked at, the sale of the property covered everybody in the second agreement of sale, except it was totally missed by all parties involved that was not included in the sale.
Well, is that still under private ownership? That has not been
That
dedicated?
right now, owned by Mosier Development LLC. Now, there is a recorded cross easement agreement that was created back years ago, 15 years ago. 2005, Charlie created a cross easement agreement for Mosier Development, which is the property that Jim bought, plus the two entities up above, north of that, which is Shawnee Ridge, and then I think he's got another one that's called University Park. So those three entities would have easement rights to utilize this road that was owned by Mosier Development LLC. And those rights were granted by Mosier Development LLC to those three parcels, including their signs and heirs. So that means once Jim bought that property, he has the right to utilize that road. So once this came to light, immediately got on, and I'm saying it's only happened like a week, 10 days ago that this came to light. We immediately got in touch with Kirkwood, and we're diligently working with them to hopefully have an agreement with them that would allow basically the plans to proceed as they are right now.
Obviously, my reaction was, are you kidding me, Doug? When you told me about this, and Doug was the one that pieced this together. And I am sure that Mr. Kirkwood did the same thing. Now, we're hoping that there's an agreement being prepared. Hope that the agreement doesn't set forth any conditions that make it extraneous for us to accept them, because then we'll just have to start all over, because obviously our land development plans that Doug wants me to sign have that road in the ownership of our entity.
Actually, when you look at the plans are silent as to, who owns that road. We're not intentionally hiding it, just didn't come to light until last week that it has a different owner. But one of the current thinking is that the Kirkwoods would have deed prepared to dedicate that road to the township and held in escrow, but they would then maintain, and the Kirkwoods would maintain that road until such time that we tie into that, and then the whole kit and caboodle would be turned over to the township as a township road. That
connection of the Mosier has real no value to the project until we finish the loop road. And because they are, there are various sections that we are, but to finish that loop road as it exists from where we're ending, like $6-7 million, right? It's a big number. So our thinking right now is we're going to do it in phases. It'll be several years, but we'll eventually tie it in. But obviously, once we do, we want to make sure that the connection will be made. So, we've always had a great relationship with the Kirkwoods over the years. We came through, we bought all the land. We're not anticipating a problem. We hope that by early next week.
But we wanted to make the township aware of it as soon as we became aware of it, so that being a small town that it is, doesn't take long for things start to float around, and we wanted you to hear it from us before you heard it from somebody else. So I'll probably be, township allows, I'll be calling John Tressler to kind of talk through the various options that might exist from an engineering and plan standpoint as to how to best, address this issue. Number one, if we assume that there's gonna be some sort of agreement that this road will be dedicated to the township and then put into escrow with Ron till then maintained by the Kirkwoods till we tie into it, what changes, if any, need to be made to the plans to accommodate that and how that process would work, so.
I want to make one thing clear. What we're not going to do is agree, I'm not saying this is, coming at us, but we're not going to agree to any, business points, okay, that don't make any economic sense for us. We hope that the agreement that Mark Wolf is preparing is simple and clean, and it's in their interest because they have some very valuable land that adjoins ours that they want to develop. So to make this connecting road from 447 to 209 benefits everyone. But it is an oversight. I'm sure they were surprised just as we were. And we're not looking for anybody to take advantage of that oversight. Not saying it is, but we just want to keep it simple.
And Jim, as you said, it's gonna, that loop road's gonna be, constructed in phases.
Yes.
And, so, we're saying right now that is this something that, is pressing? You know, that you have to get a handle on, because are you gonna be there soon?
When you think of all the things that, we're trying to accomplish with the financial institutions and with St. Luke's and even with Shawnee, we wanna put this to bed, and we don't want this hanging over us or the township, so it comes back and bites somebody in the butt.
Well, hopefully it won't hang over the township, but that's your job.
Our land development plan is such that they represent, that we control that road.
And that's what I wanna talk to John about is, unless, when you look at those plans, the indication is that it's under our control. And that's why we need to come in with an agreement where and there may need to be a note added to the plan with respect to that. So I need to talk to John as to how best, what language we come up with. And we'll come up with the engineering language, and then Ron and Mark can make sure that from a legal standpoint, it covers what us engineers are trying to.
Can I ask you a question? Mark Wolf, we're talking about Attorney Wolf,
Yes.
correct? And when you...
Yeah, he's not here right now because he's working on the Kirkwood agreement.
I was going to say that, okay. Right. Is he wearing two hats for this then?
That's a whole different conversation.
Okay.
We have, there is an agreement between both parties on this specific issue that Mark will serve both.
Let me just ask one question.
Of course.
And I don't know how the legal machinations various companies, and it's not meant for me to learn that information or compromise him, but if he owns Moser Development and that's who owns the land, what's the big deal?
I have to be careful, because when I state that the cul-de-sac's owned by Mosier Development LLC, that's a Kirkwood entity.
Yeah. Now.
Just that Jim used the word Mosier in one of his companies, so.
Okay.
So we have to be very careful.
Now I understand, okay, why that's an issue.
And I'm sorry, I should have made that.
Whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, I know, and I should have made that more clear, but that's.
Oh, it's
Very
clear.
much a timing issue. I mean, this has come up literally when we're on like 3 yard line ready to jump over. So, we want to try to get this resolved by early next week if we can, if it makes sense for us to do so. But as I said, we're going to look to be accommodating because we want to keep maintaining our schedule. We're not looking to complicate our approval process, nor are we going to look at and agree to things that make no sense for us to agree to.
And when remember, we got the subdivision plan all signed. When we bring it in, the county has a process that before it can be recorded, it has to go to the assessor's office and be reviewed. Okay? And, so when we did that, they requested that we add EPG of Shawnee 2. There wasn't a signature block, that entity on the plans. So we had a signature block for DEPG Mosher, but we didn't have one for Shawnee two. So we added that to the plan at their request. And we did the same thing on the land development plan. We added both on there because they have two separate. The nice thing is that we do have the road names on there. And the assessor's office was also nice enough, because of these plans going into escrow and everything, that we also have what the new tax numbers will be for each of the 6 parcels that are being created by the subdivision. And even the roads have a separate tax parcel, so that as they get dedicated, those tax numbers will go away, but in the interim, they also have their own tax numbers, so the land development plan, even if it is physically recorded half an hour after the subdivision plan is recorded, it'll have the proper tax numbers on it, so at least that combination.
And then you can keep those same plans, provided you get a decent agreement for the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, we have to work through that. My guess is we may need to add a note onto the plan, but John and I will have to come up with something on that.
The general question to ask is there anything else that could happen to make this project more complicated to get done?
Don't go there, Jim.
Yeah, if you need the agreement on Tuesday and saying I need it by Wednesday morning,
No,
that will make it more complicated. Especially if I have 3 agreements to look at. Keep that in mind.
This
That sounds good.
Yeah. We might get this done. It was a backburner for us, but it's important to move forward. Well, great, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We're, determined to move this forward and get it done.
Or are you in for another 10
I did
feet?
take a couple of videos this morning on my phone, but I didn't realize that when you take even a small video, the size of the file is astronomical, so I'm working on trying to how to get it off of my phone and get it someplace so that people can actually see what's going on, so.
You could put it on like Google Drive or something and send the link.
With the other people.
Really quick, Doug, Jim, before you guys leave, as you were discussing the developer's agreement, you referenced $14,000 escrow. Last time you were here, I believe you had spoken to John Tressler about separating your current single escrow into 3 separate escrows. Does the developer's agreement reflect that change, or?
We should do that.
Oh, yeah.
Good comment.
That's right, 'cause there's,
And the answer is yes, it should reflect.
I know we haven't gotten those numbers from John yet, he's still researching, but just to not have to redo it again.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, we talked about one for plan review and then one for each contract.
Right.
Because
our partner, financial partner, they're not involved in infrastructure, so we need to keep our tabs
separate.
organized. Okay? The account. Okay.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.
Enjoy your, additional 10 feet of boring tomorrow. I didn't realize it was 10 feet a day. Okay, all right. Our next order of business is scheduling the ED zone joint meeting. We sort of did that in effect, earlier, but we need to formalize it at, 4 p.m. for, August 24th. That way, that meeting, does not run into our regular meeting 3 hours later. So, do I hear a motion on, that item?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right. All right, simultaneously moved by my colleagues. All second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
I did not hear Robert
Oh, sorry.
say aye.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Brian, do you have for the next item the Zelenkowski Axelrod proposal?
No, I didn't take it with me. It came in, last week, the second time. The Axelrod proposal.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done that for you, and,
I think I
talk about
did.
the next-
Maybe you're saying you didn't get it because you said you did get it the first time. It's the same one.
not, I've not received anything.
I thought we talked about it and you saw it and you said about the structure that they had imposed and how much it would be according to what you were going to get.
That was, a transmission that they released to all townships and records related to the HESAP.
Okay, I'll get that then. What they're saying is that they're predicated pretty much on the amount of money that's going to be involved. More important than your population and your density and all that kind of stuff. So I think they quoted us $19,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we're like possibly going to receive $760,000 in the ARPA.
I think it's actually more now because one a step above us didn't take all of the money they were allotted or something like that.
And then they prorated. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
And also, not everyone in Monroe County has applied yet, so if any of our colleagues from other municipalities are watching us, please get your application in before the end of the month.
The 29th, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'll share that email with you, and I'm surprised I didn't, but.
That's okay. We can table it till next meeting if you want.
Well, what they did say, I had a conversation with the gentleman, he's a partner at, Axelrod, we'll use, okay, because I can't pronounce it first. And what he said is that starting next week, they're going to do briefings, maybe once or twice a week, and they're going to include us on the briefings because we showed interest in their firm. So that in itself, and again, you guys were fortunate enough to participate in that presentation yesterday with the county commissioners, and they had a presence in that, didn't they? That's all right.
Unfortunately, they did not actually talk about it. It was more of a recommendation from Commissioner Moyer that we retain them and that we shore ourselves up first. It was that. Yeah.
Okay. And that's, and really, we reached out to them long before they did, so. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll move that we table that item till next week, and then we can talk about the proposal.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Hi.
Okay. Next item is considering the Barry Isaac contract for professional services in regard to Marshall Falls for the demolition of Phase 1. Julia, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. This proposal is for $15,000 related to the $40,000 redevelopment authority grant that we received from the county to take down the 3 structures in Marshall. So once we have, if you choose to approve this proposal, we can get going on getting the bids out.
Get the bids out, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any problem with it, and they've been very responsive and professional with us.
I'll entertain a motion on that.
And I'll make that motion that we accept the proposal.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is considering resolution number 482, application to the Multimodal Transportation Fund. Julia, John, whoever wants to
Sure.
speak to that.
So John's office is putting together the grant application for us to apply for renovations and repairs to the Green Mountain Drive Bridge. We're looking currently at a total cost of just over $500,000.
For the repair of the bridge? Okay. All right. I don't, is that, that's from the DEP's inspections and
John, I'll let you answer that.
Well,
yeah.
it is based on what PennDOT has said should be repaired. And we made it our own inspection to confirm what that was so that we could put costs to it. So, those costs are based on doing everything that PennDOT identified, including wing wall repair, We think we kept the cost conservative in the hopes of getting all the money that we need. If we don't get all the money that we requested, we do believe, let's say they gave us $300,000, we could probably take care of the worst of the bridge if we didn't get the full amount that we're asking for. But, the estimate is based on everything that has been identified by both PennDOT and ourselves.
Let me just say that, the assessment for possibly, purchasing an easement is $66,000.
Right.
Might be the best way to go. Brian, I would defer to you on that.
Well, obviously.
The other costs.
Yeah, it's really just a policy call. I mean, yes, the 66,000 is the easement, which means, you don't own it, you just have a right to go across the property.
I thought we were gonna buy it.
Well, that's the plan.
Well, if it's an easement, it's not a buy.
I might have misspoken.
Right, well,
That's okay.
the plan in the past, and still is the plan. I mean, I think that, as we discussed, I don't think it was our last meeting, but one prior, that we discussed that this multimodal application was really the backup to us actually proceeding either by eminent domain or outright getting an agreeable purchase. I mean, we can't pay more than the 66 anyway. So if they're nice and give it to us for the sake of safety, and we spend $66K plus the paving rather than spending thousands on eminent domain court battle.
Well,
Or repair the bridge.
even with the eminent domain, I don't know if you'd ever reach the.
Well, can I interject something here? Can you hear me? Hello? First of all, the 66,000 is not an easement, that's purchase. And
Right.
so far, I think Ron and I have the same impression that there's not a lot of resistance to this. It's just figuring out something that would be would work both for a commercial business that operates there and for us. But I think we can somehow find a common ground there without ever having to go to court. That's my feeling as of now. And in terms of the multimodal grant, excuse me, what we're really saying, I think, is if we apply for the whole amount and we don't get it, or even if we do get it and we don't want to spend the part that we would be required to put in, we probably could work out something so that we could do the basic repairs we want to the bridge, and which John has outlined very well, and make it kind of a bicycle bridge or a light traffic bridge or something. So at least we're keeping the bridge, which is historical in the district, if we can. But in the meantime, we would have access on the other road for all the commercial and heavy vehicles, and we would be able to use that at will. So that would be the main entrance.
I would just like to point out one thing for your consideration is, if you elect not to repair the bridge, at some point, I mean, it's still your bridge, and it's still there, and at some point, it's going to be deemed a hazard or a safety issue, and you're going to have to do something with it, probably remove it. So there is an expense that you would incur with that as well. Certainly not anywhere near what it costs to repair it, but there remains a liability as long as that bridge remains in place.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Chair. I don't do enough grant writing to know, but I mean, does it hurt to apply for the grant? I mean, abundance of caution, just apply for the grant, and
That's what persuaded me to
still
do.
buy the other piece, fine, but then you've got some other money. I mean, if it's
That was,
not hurting the township, I
Right.
would think you apply for the grant.
Yeah,
that was
I agree.
actually what the board had discussed, so we didn't have another situation like Marshall Falls, where we were planning to have a parking lot that vanished.
Okay.
And just to be clear, while the project is $500,000, the township's match would be $100,000.
I still like that 66,000.
Yeah.
Well, your 66, and again, I think that might be closer to 100 by the time you're done. I mean, you're getting the
We
easement,
have to pay.
but you have to create the connection between the parking lot and the, Green Mountain Drive.
Yep.
No, not that that's a big expense, and I think you're gonna do that in-house, but there's still some expense with that.
Oh, sure.
And you may have to beef up the parking lot and provide some additional parking spaces that are going to be lost as a result of this. So
That's gonna be very difficult, as you know that
yeah,
site.
it is. And if that is something that the owner insists upon for this deal, I mean, we can do it, but it's gonna require a retaining wall and some work like that. So the 66, I'm saying, could escalate to 100,000 possibly.
But not 500,000.
Not 500, no.
See that.
No,
But if I'm hearing that the township's match is 100, I think that
150.
150, you could probably get close to that with the 66 by plus all these incidentals. You know, 500, no, I agree with
Right,
mine.
yeah.
We never get to 500.
Probably in the end, it could
If
be
it's 150,
250 or 300
Well, John won't let it
altogether.
get,
Might get there.
I'll do my best. I mean, like I said, I tried to get everything we could so that we could do everything if we can get it all. If we
Right.
only get 300, then your match is 100,
Right.
and we can still do most of the project.
oh, keep the bridge open. And there's another multimodal grant that's coming up, and I think it's, towards the end of summer. This is the DCED, I believe, multimodal, and then there's a PennDOT regular multimodal.
Well, and that's the other question, Julia. I don't know the answer to this, but maybe you do. Some of these grants allow you to use another grant for your match. Does this one?
I have only ever assisted time for a multi-level for DCED. In general, you're not allowed to match DCED funds with other funds, but you are allowed to match DCED funds with our funds. I do not know how that applies to PennDOT.
Yeah, or if you get some LSA
Because
money.
we've done that with Barry Heights.
Well, LSA is through DCED, so we
Okay.
probably wouldn't be able to do that, but we can.
We can
Yeah,
take a
because
look at it.
I'm working on a project in Pocono Township right now,
Right.
and it's a very expensive project, and they've been collecting funds from various grants over the past 2 years. So if you only get a partial with this, and then you can get more from another one, and you're allowed to use it as your match, it still may not cost you anything in the end. And this bridge isn't gonna fall down next week.
Right. Certainly hope.
So, I still think you might wanna pursue the multimodal.
I think it makes the most sense. There's a lot of backup plans.
In our own mind,
So having said that,
in our own
Sorry.
collective mind, I think we should do everything we can to preserve this bridge. It is the last of the 7 bridges that was the original. And I'd hate to have it come down and have the road have to be changed to No Bridge Road. So I think we should try to see everything we can do to keep it up.
I agree. It's one of the 7 originals.
But that said, I'd move that we adopt resolution number 482.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Barrett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to sign it?
Yeah, sure.
You think?
Yeah, that's
We'll sign it.
Vote in favor?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
And then, the next item is, the match commitment letter for the multimodal transportation fund application. It's the letter that enforces the resolution that we just passed and commits, up to the 150,000. This, of course, would change if the amount we get is less. So, anybody have any questions on that? I'll move that we, approve the match commitment letter.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Next item is, discussing the Act 101, Section 902 grant.
So, back when our Parco Windy caught fire, the board took the insurance payout with the understanding that the township would use those funds, as a match to pursue a new leaf truck under Act 101, Section 902. Originally, due to COVID, funding for this grant for this year was suspended, but it's been reopened. And before before I pursued going after the pre-app and then applying, I wanted to touch base with the board, make sure that we still wanted to pursue this lease trust and that we could still use those insurance funds, which were about 23.5, I believe, as a match.
Julia, how did, you've spoken, I know, with Ed. How does he feel about this?
This is the path that he wants to take. He believes that getting a full new lease truck is far more, better use of our resources than replacing cargo. It'll help keep our guys safer and, again, will help the world.
Happened early on in the leaf, pickup last year, right?
I could not put a date to it.
Yeah, I just remember when they showed us and it was like, wow, this is awesome, and then that.
Okay.
All right.
So basically, I just want an okay from the board saying, yes, please pursue this grant, and of course, I'll come back to you with matching commitment funds, resolutions, and application.
I think that makes all the sense in the world.
You'll make a motion?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll motion, so we proceed.
All right, all second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. Next item is the draft lot joinder application. Julia, you also prepared, this.
Yes, what is in front of you right now is an update to our current lot joinder application. This process was started back in October of last year, as a way to make clear what is required of our applicants, and how the process works through, internally. Ken and Lois have both reviewed this, and so that it matches with them. The next step would be for our solicitor and, John Tressler to review this, make sure it's good by them, and if the board's happy with it.
A very effective, checklist, make sure that everything that has to be done is.
We were encountering an issue earlier that, applicants would come in with, pages what they needed and didn't understand the full breadth.
Mm-hmm.
So the checklist is there, so they know exactly what they need to bring and submit a full application first time around.
Amen. You guys gonna take a look at it?
Yeah, we can put this on the next meeting, because I just dropped this on you today,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't ask you to review it and comment right away.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the initial application form, I think I prepared way back when, so it won't take me long to look at it. Update that form.
Great.
And it has your footprint on it when you have the different items listed.
As long as we have the review fee, so the township's not spending taxpayer money to review, and we have the tax certs and the sewer and water certs, that's, they're gonna be okay.
Right.
Okay, all right, well, we'll just add that to the next one then, next week. Our, next item, our penultimate item before public comment is discussing the firearm regulation letter that we received, last, about 10 days ago. Maybe more now, yeah. June 30th. Ron, do you wanna speak about this one?
Well, apparently there was a complaint made by someone in the township, with respect to, Ken attempting to enforce the township's firearms ordinance, which I believe is found in, section, chapter 6 of the, Code of Ordinances. And we received a long letter from here, correct? The Firearms Industry Consulting Group, saying that there was, that ordinance was illegal and they want us to revoke it. And, he just send the ordinances and not done immediately, Mr. Paul will be prepared to file a private criminal complaint, against the township, which will result in additional burdens, blah, blah, blah. So obviously, that is the first volley with respect to this. In my duties as township solicitor in Upper Mount Bethel Township, which is our neighboring township to the south in Northampton County, I was tasked to prepare a fire discharge ordinance for Upper Mount Bethel, so I'm familiar with this, basis of law. And I can tell you probably the most recent case with respect to this issue is the case of Barris versus Stroud Township. A few years ago, a fellow by the name, I believe, Jonathan Barris filed an action against Stroud Township for its firearms ordinance, saying that it was improper because he wanted to have a target range on his property or a shooting range on his property, and Stroud Township would not permit that. And so I believe that the Monroe County Court said that that was okay, to not have that the ordinance was okay. He then appealed it to the Commonwealth Court, and the Commonwealth Court is the first level appellate court here in Pennsylvania, and the decision came down on May 28th of this year with respect to that target range. And basically the decision was based upon the fact that they reversed the Stroud Township decision, and they basically said that the Second Amendment that says that a person has a right to bear arms means that that person should be able to protect themselves and their family, and that right is of not much good if the person cannot maintain firearm proficiency by target shooting on their property. The maintenance of firearm proficiency was considered by the Commonwealth Court to be an important corollary, if you will, of the meaningful exercise of the core right to possess firearms for self-defense under the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, Amendment 2. Now, while, I guess some people might question that reasoning, that's what the court decided. But the court also said in its opinion, contrary to what this fellow is saying, is that, you have to rescind the ordinance. The court said very clearly, in reaching our conclusion, however, we do not discount the importance of regulating target shooting in a residential environment and the important policy reasons for an ordinance, nor are we holding that every person needs to have the ability to have a personal shooting range on his property. To the contrary, a municipality clearly may regulate such activity. This court has recognized that the Second Amendment rights are not unlimited and may be restricted in the exercise of police power for the order of good order society and protection of citizens. For instance, a township may determine that the goal of protecting public could be met by imposing requirements on personal shooting ranges, such as minimum lot size, setback requirements, safety requirements, including targets and backstops to be built, requirements on the configuration or positioning of a shooting range on the property to account for distances between buildings or other obstacles. The ordinance could require that the township or law enforcement inspect the personal shooting range and approve it annually to ensure that safety requirements are met. The township chooses to enact such an ordinance and oppose these reasonable conditions, it's entirely possible that the ordinance could pass the intermediate scrutiny test. So, I don't think we should just knee-jerk and say we're doing everything, okay?
Yeah.
If, in fact, you want to deal with the firearms ordinance, as I said in Upper Mount Bethel, then there needs to be, and I would say committee, because, when you say committee, like, you want to kill something, send it to the committee, but there should be a little group, if you will, of the supervisors, and or maybe even citizens to determine what would be the best way to handle this matter. Right now, if you read the township's ordinance, hold on for 1 second because it's very short. says that it's unlawful for any person to use, fire, or discharge any gun or other firearm within the township, except if they're licensed to hunt while engaged in actual hunting, members of organizations incorporated under the law that are engaged in target shooting upon grounds or property belonging to the control of such organization, law enforcement officers in the discharge of their official duties. So it could be argued that that ordinance doesn't quite have enough meat on it to meet the requirements of what would be a reasonable condition, based upon what's called the scrutiny test, which is a special constitutional test. I mean, look,
Can I interrupt here?
Hello? If you are someone that says that we can shoot a firearm wherever, hospital zone, school playground, church parking lot, daycare center, well, if you're that kind of person, no one's ever going to convince you can't shoot anywhere then. But it seems to me that those are reasonable type conditions that would pass the scrutiny test, in my opinion. And those are not here in this ordinance, and maybe should be, as it says in the law.
Oh, hold on.
Setbacks and minimum places and target requirements and safety zones, et cetera. So
If it's crafted correctly, it can be done.
According to this decision that just came down on May 28th, which is probably the most current decision with respect to gun regulations. And I haven't had a chance to send you a little synopsis because I know you asked for it. I just didn't get there yet, but I will still do that.
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Go ahead. No, you're here. Ron was just speaking.
I think we have two questions here. The first is whether we need to modify our current ordinance per perhaps what Upper Mount Bethel has already done. And to do that, I guess we should see what they've done. But from what you're saying, you've had experience here, and we aren't quite in compliance with what might be a criticism of our ordinance that was brought up by the gun people and by Supreme Court decision. So we should look at that. But the other thing that's relevant is this: on the 24th, of August, we're going to have an open meeting and discuss the changes to the ED zone amendment. One of those, which I proposed, is we allow indoor shooting ranges, and our definition, or what I've suggested, is that it really is about noise more than anything else, which is all kinds of barriers and in ways that neighbors who are near this would not be affected by an indoor shooting range. I think from what you're saying, that's within our rights of what we can do, but we should review that so that when we bring that up on the 24th, it is in conformity with what we think that the court has given us as some leeway to set rules and boundaries on this. And by the way, what the court has not done is said anything about noise. And I think in this case, that's one of the bigger issues.
Right, and I think we'll be talking a bit later about some noise too. But I think you make a couple of really good points there. I'd like to make a few myself, just that I take severe umbrage, with people that, I understand that when you care about money and all those things, you threaten people with private criminal complaints and whatever you'd like to do, and you hire a right-wing group to talk about why we need more guns and things like that, in the township. I understand that that's the traditional path that people take, but I really take umbrage with the fact that, it's like essentially if you were passed or, essentially even thought about these ordinances that, they're going to file a complaint, of course they mention, just the people that were involved in the passage or the enforcement. Like, I think that's, I think it's in poor taste. I think clearly they could have made a nicer approach. Clearly we've had other curative amendments or other things that have come up that people made a nicer appeal to us on, and especially when they followed other rules. I think that, everybody has the right to safety and serenity, and then we can talk about, you know, the economics of having shooting ranges and things like that. I think that, you know, we have a right to regulate firearms to an extent, and I think that we should, to keep people safe and to keep people, you know, feeling okay in their own home, you know, not having to hear this and not having to worry about, you know, a bullet coming through their window by accident. You know, these are, you know, my church had been shot accidentally because somebody was being ridiculous. They shot the window in what was the preschool room. You know, I don't want to see, you know, things like that go unchallenged simply because one guy thinks that we need to repeal everything.
You should know, Mr. Chair, that obviously it is clear, and I agree with part of the letter where it says that there is a law in Pennsylvania that says that no county, no township, no borough can regulate the ownership, right, possession, transfer, or transportation of weapons. That is clear.
Understood.
Okay, but we're not doing any, the township's not doing that. Township's attempting to regulate when a person can shoot his or her weapon, whether on their property, usually obviously on their property. I think that does not run afoul of the state law that this other attorney wants to tout as being preempted. It doesn't deal with ownership, it doesn't deal with possession, it doesn't deal with transfer, it doesn't deal with transportation. If the law said control, all right, maybe, you know, shooting and discharging a gun may deal with control. Not what the law says. Possession, transportation, transfer, or transportation. So I think the township can do something on this if it wants to. And
I think the lower court actually gave us a few clues on
the
where to go,
Monroe County
as you
Court
said.
supported Stroud Township and supported the fact that this guy was, you know, shooting on his property without proper things. But the upper court said, well, you know, like I said, whether you buy it or not, that you can't have a right to bear arms if you don't have a right to practice shooting the gun. So if you can't practice your proficiency in shooting the gun, then really what good is that right to bear arms? So that was really the basis for them to reverse the decision. But again, it goes on to say, as I just read, that doesn't mean we can't regulate it. We just have to make sure we fall within certain categories to meet constitutional scrutiny.
And you mentioned the establishment maybe of an advisory committee as a very first.
Perhaps, you know, again, Robert is raising the fact that on the 24th, there's going to be that joint meeting. Maybe this can be put on the agenda. Now, you don't want to put on 6,000 things on that agenda. You may want to.
I'd rather see you draft something and take it to the planning commission. I'm not trying to get you, me, or anybody sued or shot or otherwise. I'd like to, you know.
Well, again, I have drafted an ordinance that I think passes muster in Upper Mount Bethel Township. Frankly, the uproar that it created has caused the township to want to table it and go back and look at it again, because it caused quite an uproar in the township by people who were saying that, you know, you're taking away our Second Amendment rights, et cetera.
Well, I don't want to threaten anyone's safety for attending these meetings either, because we know very well what happens in Monroe County when.
If you're telling me that you can shoot on the school grounds, on the daycare grounds, hospital grounds, church grounds, if you're telling me that that's okay to do, well, then I will never convince you that firearms should be regulated. So.
Comment or do I hold to the end?
No, you can make a comment on each item as it comes up, and then, you know, for things that aren't on the agenda, then that's at the end.
Sure. You would have to take your name. Martha Carbone. I know. How you doing? No, I just want to make a comment. It's interesting that this is on the agenda today. We're down the ridge from Shawnee Valley, and they're constantly practicing in the woods there. Sometimes it's really, I mean, they're automatic weapons and obviously big guns, and, you know, so like, for instance, my next door neighbor who lives like 20 feet, periodically will shoot his gun in his driveway. You know, he cleans his gun, he shoots a couple rounds off, you know, it's allowed, but it's like 2 rounds in the middle of the day and then it's done. You know, this guy in the woods, I don't know what he's doing and what he's got, and, one time he was so close to my house, it was myself, my husband, and the neighbor came over, and we were yelling at him, because he obviously could hear, it was so loud, it was towards our house, and then, there's trees, you can't see how close the building is. So we finally got his attention, and we're like, close guys, and he went off the other way, but anyway, it is an issue. I don't know if this is coming down from Shawnee Valley, but, like you guys are saying, reasonable restrictions. I don't want to take away anyone's right to own a gun or, shoot a couple of rounds up in their driveway if they just like their gun. But, there should be, distance. I think there already is, times of day that you can do it. I don't know, when this guy is going on, sometimes it goes on for a couple of hours, that's my ridiculous.
It's not on his property.
Oh, no, it's on the Wyndham property.
It's on the Wyndham.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other side of the road, isn't it?
Both sides.
Both sides?
Anyway,
Okay, all right.
some input from a township resident that I would voice towards some common sense
Right.
regulation.
Martha, you have always had good common sense. Unfortunately, some of the judges of our state do not, but we'll have to deal with it.
We're no party. Thank you, Martha.
So in any event, if the board wants me to sort of draft something, I could do that. I will reread the Ortiz case that he talks about, the Eggs case, the Dillison or Billion City case or whatever. I will read those again to make sure that I didn't read them too quickly or that I gave them the fast shuffle. Because he's saying all of these cases say you can't regulate discharge of firearms. I don't think they go that far. I think they say you can't regulate discharge of firearms with what this ordinance is, the one in this case.
Right.
So, but I'll read them again and work on it, and I'll send you guys something, when I have a free moment, haha.
I think Scott Township was so thorough as opposed to Smithfield Township, which was.
I thought Scott Township ordinance was very good. In fact, I modeled the Upper Mount Bethel ordinance off of what they did.
Yeah.
But then this decision again just came down a month ago, so
I'm
now
actually
sort of
astonished.
upset the, apple cart there.
I'm astonished that the original ordinance by Smithfield Township, passed and unanimously without, that's pretty amazing. 'Cause there's a lot of people, not that I'm one of them, in my party that, would advocate for basically that or stricter, and it was passed by the opposite group, 30 years ago. I find that, interesting. But is there anything that, Ron, you should do to transmit that we're going to have a good faith effort to meet the constitutional test? Yeah?
I would ignore him. You
Okay.
wanna go to court, let's go. I've been around 44 years. I know the courtroom's better than most lawyers. Let's go.
All right.
And we're starting to learn ourselves.
Yeah, pretty soon we'll probably be back in
But if the board
person.
wants me to send him a letter, I will do that.
If your advice is no,
Just like
I'm
that
not
other
gonna
case.
say, I'm not,
That's your call.
Your advice is good enough.
But then if we get sued, we understand that that was based upon that advice, if you know what I mean. You can say, well, Ron, why'd you tell me to do that? So
Well,
if you think you want me to send just a sort of reconciliation type letter that we will review
no, I
this
don't want it,
matter
I'm sorry.
and be back, in touch with you, blah, 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 I can do that.
If you don't think that's necessary, I wouldn't. I would also
Well,
ask, though, that we have a public
no.
officials insurance policy and that those supervisors that passed it potentially be covered by it. I think at least one of them is deceased.
Well, look,
and then there's us who are just trying to make things right.
when I say that, I think that's the right thing to do. That's just because that's just how I operate. Sometimes, I'll think with my stomach and not with my head. And this is sort of a stomach kind of deal because I think it just makes sense that you can't be shooting guns all over the place. But I'm not a hunter, I'm not a fisherman, so maybe I have that innate bias. So maybe what I'll do is, let me change my mind. I will send him a note saying, we received your letter, we will take it into consideration, thank you very much, and that's it.
All right.
And then if he wants to do something else, he can do this. So
Let me just say that I am a hunter, and I have been a hunter, and, I still think that the reasonable,
It just makes
it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's the health,
Yeah.
welfare,
Safety.
safety thing.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And let me just say this, we may not be aware of this, but in Monroe County, at a shooting range, I won't say which one, I've been at it. There were 2 people wounded off premises. The guns that we got, these ARs, they're so powerful, they just travel so far that this particular range for years never had a complaint, and all of a sudden, because of what the caliber of the weapon would travel further than, so, lots to look at.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of park security.
Yeah. Brian, do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. We're talking about park security, and when we're talking about that, predominantly, we're really concerned with Menacing Park because of situation of access to a creek, with absolutely no ability for us to monitor what's going on down there, other than to say that it's trespassing and it's illegal to go over and to swim in this creek. We've had over 100 people at times and weekends. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. You've seen it, and it's a disservice to pretty much not just Smithfield Township residents, but residents from all over that want to go and use it, and play some soccer on it, have a picnic. So what we're doing is we've decided that we would engage the services of a service that would provide guards, so that we can monitor who's coming into the park and just set standards. And what we found is that when they do come in and these people are the guards, if you will, they say, okay, there's no trespassing, and that's legitimate. There's no going down to the creek and swimming, no open fires, and no alcoholic beverages. And it's amazing what that last bullet item means. You say no alcoholic beverages, they turn around and they're looking for another place to go.
Same thing.
Because they can't go to the Park Service, because the Park Service have the security to monitor and make sure they're not drinking. They're down in that park. We literally tons of garbage, and most of it's broken beer bottles and whiskey bottles, and it's just. Last week, a fire under the bridge. Were you aware of that at all? The fire, smoke coming out from under the bridge. There were about 40 people under the bridge with their hibachis and whatever, their grills, and all the smoke is coming up from both sides. They called our fire company, and that'd be Shawnee Fire Company, and the guys, they said, what the hell is that? The bridge is on fire? And then, so they got down there and they said, oh my God, this is just amazing. But let me just say that the reason we're spending money, and it's some good money we're spending, is that God forbid that they're drinking and they're there with children, and God forbid, so a guy like me drinks a half a case of beer and drowns, but a little boy or girl.
Right, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little confused. Is the park closed to everyone, or just closed to drinking and bathing? And
Right. No, it's open to everyone, and that's what we're saying. That we don't want to penalize all other people. So, Robert, what it is now is that when somebody comes in there, we just ask them, okay, you're going to be here, and we tell them there's 4 areas that you cannot violate our rules. Right. And the big one and the last one is the no alcoholic beverages.
Yeah, and even, since we've been posting signs from Mount Nebo and here at the park, at the garden, we've limited the trash, itself.
Yeah,
some people were really respectful and said, okay, we're not going to do that here.
Yeah.
I know of at least 2 complaints I've gotten from neighbors who've taken their kids down to the crossing at Cherry Creek, this crossing stones, and being on weekends and being told by guards they have to leave, the park's closed and they can't be here at all. Is that true, or is that?
It's not true, and actually we didn't have guards on duty at that weekend. I remember you said that. There was also someone.
But that's the one that I mentioned also, that somebody that we never figured out.
Robert, there was a guy in like a dark uniform telling
Right.
people, I've arrested so many people and you get out of this park. We still
Right.
don't know who the heck it was.
Well,
We,
I don't know who this was, but I've heard this from two different people over about, I don't know, a month and a half. They had different incidents, and it was always on a weekend, saying the park is closed. You can't be here on a weekend. You have to get out.
And again, Robert, we didn't have anybody there to do that. We just started. We just started to engage these security firms. And they don't say anything. All they do is say, hey, no open fires. You know, like no alcoholic beverages, no trespassing over the bank and into the creek, and no swimming in the creek. Well, we can't say no swimming in the creek, but that's our, that's it. That's the way we have to do it.
Well, this was back at Cherry Creek, so I don't know who it was. I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
well,
So we have, now that we're here, we did engage the services this past weekend. And because of the weather, it was kind of iffy anyway.
mm,
But what do we, going forward, just think we should stay with Minnesink or?
well, yeah, I think that this will probably be the first weekend that from what I understand, I don't think it's supposed to like rain, like crazy or anything this weekend. So this will help us gauge, you know, what's actually gonna happen, with the good weather. So I think we should have them for this weekend.
Just that many,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think, you know, they're beefing up state police presence, by Marshall's Falls.
Yeah.
Because people are trying to, you know, park there, you know, on the street again, like they did last, summer. So,
Yeah,
you know,
no
I would
walking
say
that road,
see-
that's a dangerous
it
road.
is, it's incredibly dangerous. So I guess I'd like to see, you know, what happens this weekend at Minnesink with having a crew there.
I'll call.
Yeah.
Just the two guys, same price,
Yeah.
same hours.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Julia, remind me, will you?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, our next item, we have no bills, so we will move into public comments. So I think this is what everybody, I think,
First come, first served.
yeah. No? Okay. Well, thanks for being here.
Here to comment on, well, it's funny that you mentioned noise, because, a problem with Rainbow Mountain. And, actually, I started a petition for the supervisors to enact a noise ordinance, so if you would like to sign it right now, you could do that. For Smithfield Township.
If you take a look at it, our ordinance is very weak. And it's weak because we were this close to going to court, and experts are talking about decibels, and Ron can probably speak to this much better than I. And it got to the point, like, what is noise, and what's the cutoff? What's the decibel? And you measure it, you send your zoning officer up to, it gets to a point. But when you're coming out of a place that serves alcohol, right, Bridget, serving the alcohol is the key to this.
Yes.
And that's what's going on there. Actually, the same thing with that other place where it was another bar. But, okay, so
Well,
noise, yes.
I was gonna say, speaking of parks, it feels to me like the Mountain Eagle Park has taken some. It seems that the ACCers are coming in and setting up a little area.
Again,
Well, I mean, they had been coming up through the Antelope Tunnel and going
Right.
through the park. Now, I don't see them going through the
No.
park as much,
Okay.
but I can hear the ACC background, and they seem to be like, just staying there for whatever that can determine. Sometimes I hear music, I hear branches breaking. My neighbor Louisa hears, or she has, not with the foliage, she doesn't see it now, but she's seeing lights back there,
Oh, okay.
and,
is Louisa coming in on the left-hand side before your home?
No, she's in the cul-de-sac area. She's at the very last home.
Okay, but close to you.
Yes, yeah, right next to it.
So I'm just thinking, when she's seeing these lights, were they up to?
Well, I think she said they were sort of to the right of her house. It's kind of hard to determine. It's almost
Yeah.
like somebody has to go back and they come late at night.
Mhm.
So,
You need guns.
Well, listen, do you want to be on our committee? And
No.
We'll arm
I don't know anything about that. But, you know, we just, I think, Lynn and I just want to say that we've been here for 34 years, 35? 37, okay. You know, of course, area changes, and lately, we've had this exodus of people from the city coming out here. And, you can tell, you know, we're in this transition, and unfortunately, you have to teach people to be quiet.
Yeah, you want to preserve the serenity that you came here for.
Exactly, and, you know, it's, you know, the county and the township has spent millions of dollars to buy, preserve, you know, all this, beautiful land that we have, the park. And unless you have serenity that goes along with it, it doesn't mean anything. So, you know, it's complementary to the environment, to the ecosystem. And I think that's something that you should kind of take into consideration.
yeah, with the parks, like, you know, you have to have some oversight. Like, for instance, I know, there's a campground there in Mount Nebo, and on the website, it says you can.
The scouts use that, but I don't think they're there anymore, though.
Well, but the problem.
Somebody else is.
The problem is, it says that, I guess it's open to the public, and to click a link to register, well, I couldn't find the link. And sometimes I have seen people go to the campground, and, you know, well, the one time I asked the men that were there, well, did you register? They said, oh, they couldn't register, which I could understand, because I couldn't find it either. And I just think if there's no oversight, you just don't know what's going there. There's no, you know, anybody can go, and you don't know what's going on.
The reason for that campsite, as you know, was the Scouts, Troop 100, and they really took care of it. They policed it, they stayed there, they did weekends, they did projects, and you will see a lot of, to this day, bird nests and boxes. But they got away from that, and I don't know why, but there's very little presence with their Scouts at Mount Nebo. And having said that, we were asked if we wanted to advertise camping at that park, and we said definitely no. So you're not going to find a link to Smithfield Township saying, click here and we'll give you a campsite. We don't want it.
It does say.
But we didn't want it.
But it does say that it's camping at Mount Nebo Park.
Who says that?
It's on the website.
It could have been.
Well, then I don't know. See, not our website?
Yeah.
Could have been something that was copied over from the old
But then
website.
that should be taken off.
Well, we'll certainly look into that then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because anybody can go, and what if it's dry out and it's got a fire and the woods go up, you know, you just don't know, because there's nobody to just, you know, see what's going on.
Well, to this day, you
That's
know,
unsafe.
Monday is cleanup day for us and our road crew, sadly, because it costs us a lot of money. And, Mount Nebo, knock on wood, has been the least affected as far as vandalism, garbage, and beer bottles, but there's still indications
Well,
of
the
it.
ATVers are really causing a problem.
Well, you know what we did? We knocked trees down to stop that. And it worked, I guess, for a while, but we'll have to get back on it. It's you know, it's an intermunicipal park, you know that, Lynn.
Yes.
It's us in Middle Smithfield Township. So we could put a group together. We have the resources to
One of the things
try to
that,
do
you
it.
know, I asked Ed about was boulders, so that's something that we could talk about, because those, you know, you put them there, usually they're not gonna be easily moved.
The main,
There are frisbees back there, because you saw it, didn't you see the, beer, cans, there are beer cans back there?
the main access for ATVers is really from the power line trail that goes behind the park. And that's where they can come up there the easiest. And if we could put the barriers with logs around there, I think it would help. I also think the concept that was just brought up by these people of serenity being something that's part of, let's say, the natural environment is true. And we're a township that has a lot of natural environment and some wonderful spaces, and especially spaces that are unchanged, even Mount Nebo Park. But, everybody's entitled to peace and quiet, and we've got to find some way to figure out how we balance between people like, um, uh, let's say, as Brian said, drinking alcohol and playing music, and people who really need to say after 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, this is not acceptable. So maybe we need to form a committee. I don't know, but I think we need a noise ordinance, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'll be on the committee for that, because I have the petition.
Oh, that's right, you're
for the-
way ahead of
for the
us.
noise ordinance, because, and, people are unhappy, and, okay, well, I do believe that the ATVers are coming through the animal tunnel, but also, Robert, I think they're coming from.
The power line.
Park.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I mean, there might be a number of entrances for
Well,
them.
they all cost property.
Oh, yeah, they're going on the Manda property.
Yes,
They're
they
going
just,
from the animal tunnel, it's PennDOT to the Mandas to the park.
My dad is
And then
posting
from
the
there
Manda
to-
property, actually.
yeah.
Your dead way.
Is posting, Sal and Noreen's property.
Oh, is he,
Yeah, he went to the county to get some meets and bounds and things, so he can post that.
Well, actually, I got a trail camera to put up on the state agency commission.
Did you?
I haven't done it yet, but I just, okay.
Well, we had a trail cam up there and somebody stole it. And,
Well, that's an issue, yeah, that is an issue.
and you think, like they're camouflage and they're,
I
and
know.
this day and age, they're not
Oh, yeah.
that big,
Well, I'm gonna try to
They
keep
got it.
camouflage.
Also, I just want to mention also this past July 4th, people were allowed to shoot off fireworks.
Right.
I don't know where you live, but
It was awful.
from 9 o'clock to about 1 o'clock, it was boom,
Yeah.
it was nonstop.
Right.
Not in your hollow,
Yeah.
geez.
Oh, it was all over.
Now,
And John Ace is gone, what do you mean?
People were, right. Yeah, people were absolutely everywhere.
Something like that should be addressed.
Yeah.
The thing, we have to,
Oh, yeah, there should be.
that's something that'll probably be in a separate, not aside from the noise ordinance, because that has to be in compliance, what is it, Act 43? Act 43 of 2019, in regard to the fireworks that made it essentially unlimited aside from high-grade pyrotechnics. We have to comply with that, so it'll probably be a separate fireworks ordinance, but the other noise ordinance, that can cover more, than just,
So,
Rainbow Mountain.
yeah, that's what I was gonna.
yeah, that's probably
talk
the
about.
easiest one to tackle first, because you've contacted the Liquor Control Board, right?
Right, yeah, and Jay, well, I couldn't get into all the details, but Jay he did drive by.
Jay
not
Connor.
Jay Connor, not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
Uh-huh.
But, that was the 4th of July weekend,
Okay.
but hopefully he didn't go by that Saturday because the weather wasn't that great. Sunday was,
Yeah.
and, it's weather dependent on this outdoors DJ. And, so I have not been in contact with him since, but he was off for 4 days, so he didn't go last weekend, but told me he's going to drive by again this coming weekend.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure about the weather either with that. If the weather is bad, DJ may not be outside, that's sort of the issue with that. But,
Jacob's checking the weather as we speak.
Yeah. Friday is nice, but Saturday and Sunday looks like thunderstorm. So maybe he wants to find
I don't know,
another.
maybe I don't know if he's gonna when he's gonna call you, or.
Well,
maybe-
I have a call in, I'm gonna call him, I won't do it now, but tomorrow I'll call him, I'll call Jay.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask him, I said, listen, if you are up here, here's my cell phone number. Give me a call, and maybe I'll tag along with you. And,
Well,
Jacob.
Well, I wasn't sure when he went by the 4th of July weekend, if he actually saw by and looking. I'm not really sure how the whole thing's gonna go down. But he did say after he drove by the second, get back to me and let me know what happened.
Okay.
But, well, you probably, well, I wrote in my email that the sound is not supposed to be going above the ground, the property. But, I just couldn't believe when I've been driving by how loud it is.
Probably feel it in your car.
Pardon me?
Probably feel it in your car.
Well, it's amplified with, and the DJ with the microphone, and the thing is, they are just ramping it up. I mean, since we moved there 37 years ago, I have always really, really liked Rainbow because they were a great,
Great neighborhood.
little resort, clean, respectful. I think twice in the 37 years I've called with the place, and both times they were very responsible, and I never had a question. Now it's just totally out of control. They have these DJs every single weekend. If the DJs are in charge, management is horrible. I call Maggie, she's the manager, she doesn't do anything. She has very bad reviews on Supervisors for, her management style or lack of. So, I don't even know what to say anymore about it. I'm very upset. The neighbors that I've been going around with the petitions in the area, very upset, very angry over this whole thing with Rainbow, and, what power do I have?
Well, you have the power to come to us and move us.
Yeah.
And I know
Absolutely.
Jacob has, talked to me a little bit about it. You alerted us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different generation, it's a younger generation
Yeah.
moving in, more in your face, kind of attitude.
No
and-
respect for
yeah.
neighbors at all, no respect.
And-
Well, I don't know if we should mention, but I've been looking at their Facebook page only because of, these DJs, I wanna see what they're doing, and they are, for the definition of stripping, they are stripping at the pool club. And they are in
Martha,
the club.
Did you hear that?
Let's go. So that is, that's.
Well,
Because they posted it, I actually have it on my phone, if you would wanna see it, so it's, okay. But it is the definition of stripping, I did talk to Jay about it, he said that as long as they have pasties and a string, it's okay. So, but I don't know where this falls with your township.
Well, listen, as a chair, you investigate this.
Is there a new owner? Yes.
Yes.
How many times?
Changed
No.
owners
Probably number
in
7.
April of, changed owners. All right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you gotta get a lot of houses around there, you have to be a good.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
If that's what they're doing during the day, what do you think they're doing at night? In the bar,
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, Jay said, he said in the bar, that's not their purvey at all. I think what he said, I would wanna clarify this, is if they are like full frontal nude and you can see them from the roadside, that's an issue. But I think other than that, like for the L Liquor Control Board, I don't think it's an issue other than that, from what he told me, or how I understood it.
So it's really, his main concern, it's a place that serves, has a liquor license, that's their purvey, the LCB. And if it's noise, whatever that noise might be, that leaves their premises, they can get involved.
Yeah, I think it's amplified, I think it's not, amplified noise is not allowed.
Outside,
Outside, I believe that's what it is, but I know it's not allowed to be heard outside the establishment.
Okay.
So, and I asked her about the nuisance, because it says, in the Liquor Control Board, website about nuisance, and, there are other things with trash kind of around, and, but he said, they were saying that, some of those nuisance problems that they had were considered discriminatory, and that's been rolled back.
Really?
And that's what he told me. The nuisance is now drug overdose and shooting.
Oh, my God.
That's a nuisance. That's a nuisance.
Yeah.
This is how the society's going, fortunately.
Well, they are new owners, and as you said, in the past, it was a lovely place, and, my family, my kids up there, great food, you know,
Certainly.
yeah, but I guess every time it changes hands, it gets worse and worse, and now to a situation that you guys in your.
Well, I don't think it has been, I don't think the previous owner to this, I called him once, he was very, very nice. And,
Well, that's good to
you
hear.
know, I really don't think we've had any problems other than starting with this last transfer in April of 2000.
Okay. Well, we'll look for advice from our solicitor, that's for sure, and on what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, once you want to submit that, petition, we can take, more formal action in terms of, considering, drafting, the nuisance ordinance. I know that Ron has actually sent us a couple of samples that he's done in some other, areas, and we can begin to talk about that. I promise that's not something we'll talk about on August 24th, because we need to make sure that we give this its own time, so it's not, mixed in with other zoning, matters. But I think that, sometime in the next few weeks, we can get together and talk about that, and, have a couple of drafts, talk about those, and have Ron, spend a little more time in a public meeting on that. And we can certainly follow up with the Liquor Control Board. I know Brian has, and I know that we can keep checking, routinely, on that. And,
Well, is there anything that I can do or other things? Other than, I mean, I have this.
have you had any of them also call Rainbow Mountain to sort of, have more of a
I know one other, I don't know if I wanna say his name, but I know one other name has sold. Well, I know the neighbors have sold too.
over at Rainbow Mountain?
Oh, yeah, they have, a couple of the neighbors have gone, over to Rainbow during the music and anthem.
Right.
It could even be a matter, aside from the noise, of the music, if they get like, management team in there that, are mature and know what to do.
Sure.
Because it seems like, to me, it seems like the DJs are just running, they're running the neighborhood, they're just running the show, and the management just doesn't know what to do.
Perhaps if you, just to aid to our file and, keep a track of it, maybe the next time that, the noise is getting that rowdy, take a video of that. I don't know what we can do explicitly with that video, but it at least serves to corroborate, what you're saying, so then we can build that pattern and eventually lead to something either with LCD or even zoning wise, if it comes to that with a nuisance or noise ordinance.
Do you know about the noise problem from Springfield?
Did I know? Actually, Jacob, I guess, you went to Jacob, and Jacob informed us of it right away. And that was the first I really heard of it, through you, and then.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have experienced it personally, but
No.
I've heard about it from you. That really what started, the flurry is just, other people talking about the ATVs, and then the rainbow issue as the season, as it got warmer, that sort of came up at the same time.
And you didn't know anything about, like, what is going on there with the performance system?
That I don't think any of us can really,
Well, I wouldn't have known it only because they posted it on Facebook.
Yeah, unfortunately, if there's a problem consistently with that, then I guess we'd have to see in our zoning ordinance as to what, adult uses are, if it actually meets our ordinance's definition of stripping or exotic dancing beyond what's permissible in that area, I suppose, then that's something that the zoning officer can.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that, because the more important issue right now is really the noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like it's just, they're gonna do whatever they want.
They are just running amok.
No, yeah,
They just are
no
doing
holds
whatever
barred.
they want.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing I'd like to do is when I get back is contact the owners, because I have the feeling they have other hospitality businesses around the area. I think this is just.
True, I think that, yeah, that these people are from, other groups, corporations, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Um,
Those two are.
I think this discussion might be best pursued after we adjourn, so that we can let these two guys on the left, at least my left, Ron and John, exit. If you look at John, he's got his hands up like he's praying. I think that means please.
Robert, is it 1 a.m. for you?
No, it's 12:30.
Oh, it's dinner time in Spain.
Right. No dinner time at 12:30 here. The whole country shut down on curfews after I think 10 o'clock or maybe 11 at night because of the Delta virus.
Oh, my God. Oh, Delta, look at her.
Just remember the airline. Delta is ready when you are.
Yeah.
Okay,
That said, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Take care, Robert. Talk soon.
Robert, take care.
See you, Robert.
Night.
Robert,
Everybody.
thank you.